Thank you. So, so I'll start with a prayer and we can start the service. If everyone can please join me in prayer. Tare Manashin, Honor Umunim. Our beloved and precious Heavenly Parent, we're so grateful that we can be here on this very refreshing winter day. We know a lot of our brothers and sisters are at home and watching over Zoom, and other people have kind of started a bit of their Christmas holidays and are back visiting families or visiting friends. We know it's a really precious time of year where the year comes to a close and we celebrate with Christmas and time with family. And then hopefully each of us really takes the time to reflect and prepare for the next year. So as we are here together and we offer up our hearts, I genuinely pray that we can be united and together as an extended family here. Even though physically there's a few of us, we know that spiritually there's your heart and your presence, and many, many brothers and sisters here with us. Not just the ones that are here through Zoom, but also our ancestors, the spirit world that wants to be part of this True Parents movement and True Parents lifestyle. So I'm grateful that we're here. Pray that we can all learn from each other through this time, and we can also feel your presence here. Support this in the very grateful heart in our names, and in the young and Vicky, blessed and true. Much. Okay, so again, apologies for starting late. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Every time they happen, we're trying to get better and better at it, and every now and then a few people are not here, so the people that would normally be doing it just aren't here. I think Dylan went home already, right? Studying, okay. And then Victor's away this weekend, so we just kind of we just need to be a bit better organized. So apologies for that. But yeah, I was saying kind of in the intro time there that I very much enjoy the cold days of winter, right? Something I kind of miss. You know, when I was growing up, we always had long, cold winters, and there was always snow. I'm kind of hoping for snow today. It's in the forecast, but we'll see today or tomorrow. But yeah, and obviously, you know, this is we're getting closer and closer to Christmas time and to the end of the year. And as I said in my email this morning, where it's 21 days left to end the year, which is a really nice number. It's a number of perfection. It's the perfect time to start a nice end of year condition if you're not doing one yet. And yeah, it's what I wanted to kind of talk about today was, and the title I put for my service today was reflection time, right? Because in many ways, Christmas is a time marker of the year. I often think, if I think back to last Christmas, then it's a good way for me to kind of get a sense of how things were a year ago. What was I doing a year ago? What's happened since last Christmas? And it's a good way to kind of see what's changed and what's different and what's the same. Right? And so it provides a really useful, what I would call a time marker for reflection. And it's a really good way to be like, okay, last Christmas, these things were happening. This is stuff that happened before Christmas. This is stuff that happened up to New Year. And, you know, these are all the things that happened since then. It's kind of a good way to kind of mark the memory, right? Which I find is older, is more and more mark my memory points. And another one for me that's good is kind of my birthday, because it's kind of right in the middle of those two. So yeah, and I think it's also a really good tradition that we have, and I think it's something we're trained to do from workshops and from different things to reflect, to stop and to think about the things that have happened, and then also to kind of make a new determination or a start for the next year or the next part of our lives, right? I don't think everyone does that. I don't think that's, I know there's a lot of people that do, but I don't think it's as common as we might think it is. I think it's something we might take for granted. This idea of the importance of reflection, of kind of stopping and giving time to really kind of plan for the next year as well. So, when I reflect on kind of a community level about where we were last year, right, and starting the new year, I really had this feeling that we were kind of restarting because we were coming out of COVID. We didn't yet feel comfortable having like a winter workshop or something where we kind of were all together and meeting, but we were starting to meet and starting to have more events. And when I look over this whole past year, I feel like we've kind of been building up, kind of our comfort with getting back to normal, right? And that's kind of the whole world was doing something similar. But for this year, when I compare to last year, I feel actually like we have a lot of momentum. I'm actually quite excited about the things that have been happening. Last time I gave the service, I was talking about I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was talking about the event I went to. It was quite inspiring. So I feel like we have a lot of momentum as a community moving into the new year. And so for me personally, I'm very optimistic for 2023. And I know that's not saying as much because I'm generally optimistic. I'm an optimistic person by nature. But I do feel really good about the ending of this. And I really want to make some kind of refocused efforts for next year. And I think one of the things that makes me very optimistic is I feel like there's more people that are part of it as well. I can't emphasize enough actually how happy I am for the people that kind of stood up to be directors and people are organizing things and volunteering to support more. It's a very good feeling for me to see that, right? So so with that kind of context, something I think about a lot this time of year is the passage of time, right? And what time means, how important time is and how much it affects us, right? And you kind of have like the macro passage of time, the yearly reviews, the yearly reflection events, the milestones in your life that you kind of hit and then reflect on or aiming for. And then you have kind of the micro passage of time, which is like the daily schedule you make for yourself, right? And and the kind of habits we develop in our daily lives. And I know for me, I give this impression, I think when people meet me, I get this impression that I'm really, really busy, right? In my daily life, it's kind of full of all these different things I have to do. And that's true. I am very busy, but I do have free time. If I'm honest, I have to confess that I do have free time. And I do wonder if that free time is always used in the best way. Right? I think when we talk about like the micro passage of time, it's about the hours in the day and the half hours of the day that we use, and how we're using them, and how are we making them productive, and how do we make them more unselfish, right? And this isn't a principled thing per se. It's everyone in the world is trying to figure this out, right? And I don't know, maybe guys get more of these ads than girls, but if you're on Facebook or YouTube, there's always this like guru who's coming out trying to teach you how to be, make more money, and be more organized, and be your best self, right? And they're all scams, by the way, but it's a very common theme. Like, how do you become a better person, right? And we're going to see a lot more of it in January because it's the new year. Everyone's making determinations to be better. So, organizing your daily life is a challenge, right? It's about prioritizing the different things you have to do. You need to have a job, and one thing is when I think about a job, I usually try to think of it as like my contribution to society, right? It's not just about making money. It's not just about, doing something so that I make money. Doesn't mean it's enjoyable, but in the bigger picture of society, everyone who's working is kind of contributing to make the system run to one extent. So that takes up a big chunk of time. Right? And then when you have family, that takes a big chunk. Obviously, if you're trying to do God's will, that takes up, in theory, the rest of the time. And then you kind of have a little bit of free time. And how do you use that free time? And, basically in my free time, I'm just trying to relax, right? Just trying to not think about stuff or just, in a way, waste time. And that's very normal. In fact, I think people would say that's healthy. But sometimes I wonder, right? Because I feel like the standard of free time is really true father and true parents, right? And they don't have free time. In other words, the minute they wake up, they're praying, and then they're coming to meet the members, and they talk for sometimes 5 or 6 hours, right? And they have lunch, but they have lunch while still talking with everyone. And then right after that, father would then start meeting leaders, moving around, and organizing things, right? I know I've shared this before, but when we were on STF, we went to Korea, and they did a lottery for European STF with 4 people to go with father in the helicopter for the day. And Vicky got picked for that, and she was there with father. And afterwards, it was just father was just constantly meeting with him. He went from Hunduke to meeting with Japanese sisters to meeting with leaders. And so they were here with father the whole day. And basically they were just jumping from meeting to meeting, right? And so in some ways that's the standard of personal time, because all personal time is public, right? And that's a very difficult standard. And then even let's say second tier, under father, there's people like, these people that found businesses. And I'm thinking mostly of Elon Musk right now. Right? They just don't sleep. All they do is like work. All they do is try to like accomplish something, right? And it's their whole focus and their whole mindset, right? And so I wonder if is that something genetic, right? Is that like there's some people that can do that and some people that can't? Is that something that you can train yourself to do or learn how to do? It's something I thought about a lot in university, because the only way you can do that is to get less sleep, right? So father was only sleeping, mother was only sleeping 2 or 3 hours a lot of their lives. And, I had a friend who gave a testimony when the church leaders I lived with, and he said he tried to do that in a workshop. He was so inspired. So he tried to stay up and only sleep 2 hours a night, right? Just for this workshop. It was like a 14-day workshop. He ended up in the hospital, right? His body couldn't handle it. And so I'll always remember that. I'm like, oh, I should, sleep less and work harder. I'm like, well, I don't want to end up in the hospital, right? So, but he kind of realized that, by trying to emulate father, that there was something that father had that he didn't, right? It was like a real kind of wake up, like eye-opening moment. But so it's just, in our personal lives, it's an important question, right? How much of our time, yes, we need some time for ourselves, we have our commitments, but are we really using that time in the most unselfish way? Right? Are we really using that time in the most productive way? And I already know the answer. In my own situation, it's no, right? And every year I'm trying to change that and improve it, right? It's, every time I give a New Year's resolution, it's around like how I manage my time. But it is a challenge, right? And time is so precious for that reason. But that's the micro level, right? And it's a crucial part of our lives of faith. How much time do we give to our lives of faith? It's a very crucial question, but at the end of the day, I think that's an individual challenge, right? It's our individual responsibility. You know, we try to figure out how to do that as best we can. You know, we try to find things that inspire us, and motivate us, and kind of fill us up with love and energy so we can do more things like that. But I think that's the whole mind-body unity challenge. It's kind of a never-ending struggle. But that's on like an individual level, right? But if we take a step back and look at the macro level, and I think this is what I think is even more important, right? Is, you know, time, the bigger view of time, right? I think time is even more precious than we realize, so we can really kind of comprehend. Because, you know, one of the very obvious things about time, if you stop and you think about it, right, is that for each of us, time will end, right? And that the real reality of life that is a lot of people try to avoid or we don't think about too much is death, right? Is that everyone's going to die. And, you know, this is something Christians really use as a very kind of powerful way to focus on what's important, right? You know, when Christians are witnessing, look, nothing else matters. You're going to die. So when you die, in that moment, what's important, right? What do you think is the most important? And that's, you know, not to go to hell, accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, right? That's the kind of pitch and the message. And it's very powerful because, you know, people don't think about death, or they worry about death, or it consumes them, right? If they do think about it. So there's almost two options, right? Think about it too much or not think about it at all. And so, you know, really what matters is that kind of precious macro level of time. How do we use our time over? Right? How do we spend time? Because one of the challenges with that day-to-day, that kind of micro level of time, is we can get too focused. We can get kind of consumed in the day-to-day. And it's always important to kind of, especially, you know, at these moments, these kind of time markers, the end of the year, so where we can spend time to step back and reflect, is to really reflect on, you know, what is the most important aspect of our lives, of our short lives, right? And really being kind of honest and being clear. You know, I read this story about a nurse. I think most people have heard this story. I think it's kind of famous. It makes the rounds on Facebook every now and then, or I don't know, whatever social media you young kids use these days. Facebook's for old people now. But it was, you know, this nurse who was working in a hospice. You know, people are dying, and you know, she'd hear them at the end of their lives talking about kind of what matters. And she's, you know, she started to ask them, you know, what is it you kind of regret most in life? And no one said they wish they had worked harder, right? No one said, you know, they wish they had, you know, maybe started a few more businesses or slept less so they could grind more, right? But that was never really what anyone really cared about. What people cared about was the time they spent, you know, with family, people they loved, or their biggest regrets were not kind of reconciling with someone they cared about, or not spending time with someone they maybe lost touch with, right? And I think that, you know, I think you can say it 100 times. You know, if I could, I'd say it 1,000 times. Right? But I think one of the universal truths is the thing that matters most, the thing that really determines if we're going to be happy or not, fulfilled or not, are our relationships, are our interactions with other people, and how we manage them. And so, you know, when over this past kind of month, there's been kind of 4 examples where I've had time to just kind of meet with someone. Not even meet, but just like spend time with them in a very kind of natural way. And every time I've just been looking back, during the time they were there, and then even reflecting, it's like kind of time stops and the hair slows down. Just happy to spend time together and just really kind of enjoying the company and just feeling it's like you don't want it to stop, right? This kind of feeling you have very often with family or with very close friends. And it was just very notable because it happened kind of 4 times in a month, right? Where it was just very, very notable, where I just felt, either so at home in someone else's apartment or someone else's house, just felt like, you just feel like you're part of the family, or people came over to spend time at our house, and it just felt like part of the family, like they just belonged there. It was such a nice feeling, even to the point where like one time we just had to leave them in the house or leave them in the living room, right? And we didn't care, and they didn't care. It was just a very natural feeling because, oftentimes if you're visiting someone, it's like they're a guest, and so you always have to be with them, and it's can be a little bit awkward if you leave, right? Whereas if they're family and they're just part of the family, yeah, we're gonna go out, you stay here, you watch some TV, you take a nap or whatever, and nobody cares. It's just very natural. It's very, it's hard to describe, but it's, I guess, heartwarming, right? And it just kind of brought into focus to me because it happened like quite a few times in a row. Like, in a way, it's one of the things I think we're missing. That's the kind of thing, right? It's something we get at Christmas time a bit when we visit family. But I was just thinking, how do you do this all the time? Right? How can you really always have these kind of times where you're just with people, together with people, enjoying the everyday kind of being together? And it reminds me, and I know that I'm kind of an extrovert, so I like kind of talking to people, being with people, but I also get tired of that actually after a bit, right? But even so, a friend of mine who was really an introvert, he introduced me once to this idea of comfortable silence, which I thought was really nice. Where it's like, you're not talking, you're with someone, but you're not talking to them. You don't have to talk, right? And it's kind of similar to what I was saying, you're happy for people to just be in your house, just, if they're doing something, you're doing something else, but you're happy that you're together and that you're sharing the moment, so to speak, right? So, ultimately, it's those experiences that matter, right? And matter the most. And so, again, being very kind of reflective this time of year, I think it's important that we somehow prioritize that, somehow find the way to make moments for those times, because there's so much more rewarding than the kind of little bits of free time I have to try to like relax or just try to not think about stuff. But actually, it'd be much nicer if I could do that and someone else was doing it. Maybe they were doing their own thing, but we're doing it together, right? That kind of comfortable silence. I guess one example I can give is maybe if you're reading a book with someone and they're reading a book. That's always kind of somehow it's a nice experience, right? Me and Vicky do that sometimes. We're both reading a book on the couch in the evening. And it's like we're spending time together. But we don't have to always be kind of talking directly, doing something, right? So yeah, I think kind of in conclusion, right? It's a great time of year anyway, for this type of meeting with people. And I know that I kind of have more free time on my hands, so that's kind of partially why I was able to do this. But don't. I guess my closing thought is, don't be shy to invite people to come into, your home or into your experiences, right? One of the experiences that was just kind of very ad hoc, where it's just like, why don't you just come to our house? They're like, okay, sure. And it just ended up being a really nice day for me. I hope. So yeah, and also in terms of, it's kind of an open invitation for everyone for our house and our family. Don't be shy about asking to come over either, because it really is something I want more of, right? It's something I think all of us deep down really want more of that time with other people, right? Especially people that we already have a strong common base with, especially people that we already can kind of connect on a deeper level, right? One final example I wanted to give is we have very nice neighbors, right? To the point where we'll be outside and we can chat for like an hour together, right? And they have 3 kids, but they're all kind of slightly older, so it's not like the kids would quite play together. But they're a very nice family, they're very friendly neighbors, and we give them cake sometimes, they'll give us cake sometimes. But I feel like there's a barrier, right? It's like we won't go past the door, right? We'll talk to each other outside and say hi to each other and meet each other at events. But like I almost hinted once, like, why don't you come over and have a game night or something, play, do some event. And there's an obvious barrier there. And so I think that the idea, I think the ultimate success of the providence of restoration, when we can tell that things are working, it's when those barriers start to come down. And it's easy to meet people and easy to connect to people. And that connection is honest and it's deep and it's sincere. Right? The reason you don't leave guests in your house, sometimes you're not sure if they're gonna steal something, right? It's like there's a little bit of, you don't think they will, but there's a little bit of distrust, right? There's a little bit of awkwardness. And I feel that with other people, right? And I'm using the neighbors as an example because they're really, really nice, but I can't just invite them to my house for something, even though I want to, right? There's something awkward there, some social norm that is preventing it, or maybe something, something there, right? And it's true on both sides actually, because we have nice neighbors on both sides. So it's just so it's so different when you can feel that and when you can. I think that contrast is the point I'm trying to make, right? Is that if we're successful in living the principle and teaching the principle, and then I think the way we can see that is when we see people are easily kind of willing to kind of come into our homes. They feel comfortable and we feel comfortable. And I think in a way that is the work of restoration. Right? That is restoration of art, is where we genuinely are comfortable with each other. Because we're not right now. Like if you look at the wider world, we're not. And even if you look in our community, we're not comfortable, right? So I just want to share that because it really kind of impacted me this past week. It was really something that I guess I was missing, and I didn't really realize I was missing, or maybe it was something I didn't, hadn't thought about enough, or didn't quite know how to put into words. But it's definitely something for next year. I want to try to prioritize and figure out how to prioritize that. So, all right. So thank you, everyone. That's kind of the end of the service. So I'll end with a quick prayer. Saram Manashin, our dear, beloved, and precious Heavenly Parent. We're so grateful, as always, that we have the lives that we have the love and support of so many people. We know that if we could truly see all of human history, understand the hearts of every individual alive today and in the past, we would be nothing but grateful and full of love and repentance, because we've been so taken care of. We're in such a good place compared to how most people have had to live in history. I'm so grateful to each of the brothers and sisters that are part of this community that really make it worth coming in here every Sunday to meet them, to share with them. And I really pray that that environment we can build, of course not perfect, is also something that we can spread, that we can truly understand from the core of our hearts and minds that all people really need a sense of a center, a purpose, a direction, an understanding of their relationship with their creator. And we know that if we start to expand out, we encounter a lot of challenges, a lot of pain and trauma that exists in this world. At the same time, I really pray that we can be stronger than challenges, that through our support for each other, we can be capable of taking care of more and more people, kind of absorbing and overcoming that suffering through your love and through the understanding of restoration, the matching blessing process, through the connection of our creator as the source. So always as we come to the end of this year, we really pray that we can take the time to look at our lives and really put it in perspective and really be inspired moving into the future and be inspired in terms of the actions we take. I report this prayer on behalf of all of my brothers and sisters here and on Zoom. And my young Il and Vicky, the blessed Roy, can you get up Song of the Garden? And while he's doing that, I was thinking maybe